So I finally got the title in the mail for this car. It's a 1969 Buick Skylark. I bought it back in probably 2004, I think. When I first got it, I was able to get it started and move it. Basically, I drove it about a block to a storage place, and then it's sat ever since. This car, I'm dedicating this project to a friend of mine who I lost to cancer about a year and a half ago. He was 26 years old. He's one of my best friends, one of the best all-around guys I've ever met in my life. He's one of those few people you know in life that is just on your wavelength. And I don't have many people on my wavelength. I'm a little strange. But he was a car guy, hardcore, and he was a big dude. He was a Mopar man to the core. Absolutely loved will it run projects. Huge roadkill fan. He restored his own 1970 Dodge Charger. Put a picture of that in here. He had a big stroker motor he built for it. After that thing gave him problems, he eventually put a late model Hemi in it. His car was in the shop here a lot. I'll put a couple of pictures of it. He put vintage air in it, did as much of the work he could himself. And there towards the end, he was doing real well. He was able to get up and walk around, and we all thought everything was going great. And then he finally could get around without crutches. He'd been kind of bedfast for about a year. He was finally able to get up on his own feet and walk around, and everybody thought it was going great. And then he started having shortness of breath problems, and he went into the hospital. It was probably middle of the week, and they sent him home 4 or 5 days later on hospice. Oh, that's a hard thing to accept for a 25-year-old, but shortly before he went back into the hospital, he wanted to do a will it run on this car here, and so did I. I'd considered parting it out because it has a lot of parts that I need for other cars, and it's not really particularly valuable. But he wanted to do a will it run, so one Sunday we pulled it up a couple of foot and drug it out in the yard there, and went about trying to get the thing to run. It had been flooded. We had a bad flood here 2 or 3 years ago, and water was about up to here. For the whole nose of the car. Water got in the engine. I pumped probably 20 gallons of water out before I got any oil out of the oil pan. But I got to spin, soak the cylinders with transmission fluid, and I would periodically to spin the motor, with my hand and a ratchet just to make sure that it wasn't stuck. After I drained the water out of it, I filled up the crankcase with new oil, turned it over with the starter. It was getting oil pressure at the top of the engine, seemed okay. But anyways, when we went to do the will it run, it would crank, it would sputter, but we weren't getting spark for more than a couple of seconds at a time. I went to pull the distributor out, and it was just it was aluminum distributor body and an aluminum front engine cover, and it was just completely seized. Couldn't get it up, couldn't get it to turn, points, everything in there was just corroded mess of junk. So unfortunately he had to leave. It was getting dark this time of year, and we just pushed it back in the barn, and a month or two later, that's when he found out that he had cancer, and that was the end of that about 6 months later. So this project is one he was real excited about, you know, so in his honor, I'm gonna get it going for him, or try to. My plan for the car is to make it kind of a rolling project, you know, something I just piddle with, drive and enjoy. Very much like the Disgusting project with Roadkill, which I'm sure everybody knows about. It's even a similar color, but so I'm gonna put a fuel pump on it. I'm gonna get it to run, you know, out of a gas can, but with its own pump. I did get the distributor out of it, probably 6 months ago, something like that. And it was so seized, it just busted right at the base, busted off. But I got the thing out and I put another distributor in it. The carburetor is off, has been off for a while. I'm gonna rebuild the carburetor, put the new fuel pump on it, put a new coil in it, and that should give us a good opportunity to run. Hey everyone, so here we have the carburetor for the 69 out there. Already did a real quick cleanup of it, blew it off. This is not really gonna so much be a in-depth carburetor overhaul, so much as basically just making sure that there's not a bunch of dirt in it, that the gaskets are intact, that the accelerator pump works. This carburetor was in working condition when I took it off of one of my other Skylarks, so it was a good solid one. So this thing has been bolted to the 69 for a long time, 10-15 years at least. So we're just gonna do a real quick tear down. I'll probably just you know, compress a lot of this, time lapse it. This is really not fascinating, it's not as exciting, but anyways, we'll do a quick tear down. As you can see, there's already some stuff popped loose. Basically, I'm gonna pull the top off of it, check the condition of the bowl gasket, needle and seat. I've got a carb kit here, so we'll just see what happens. Give that thing a good chance of actually firing. This thing has very, very little hours on it. I went through it 10-15 years ago, so we may be in good shape anyways. It's got a little bit of junk in it. Not bad at all. It's important to make sure that your accelerator pumps have good pliable rubber on your plungers here, which this one does. Probably put just a dab of grease around it. I'm gonna blow that out. I'm gonna pull the needle and seat real quick. I may replace the needle and seat if it's got any wear. Yeah, you can see it's pretty new. So obviously last time I messed with this, I checked this. Needle and seat shows nowhere. These rubber tipped ones are real bad about drying out. The old solid brass units really weren't. But what you need to look for is a ring. If there's a real hard ring on this needle, just junk it. It's not worth the struggle. That looks to be in great shape. I'm just gonna put it back together. Like I said, this is just an inspection. Make sure that I'm not gonna have problems with something that is easily corrected. My bowl gasket's in good shape. I think I'm just gonna blow this out, blow my needle passageways out, and screw the lid back on it and move on to the next step. All right, plug your ears. I like to rebuild my carburetors on these pie trays, cookie sheets, whatever you want to call them. If you drop, you got me a dab of grease. I'm just gonna put just a little on this. Keep from tearing it till it fills up with fuel. Making sure there's no pitting or anything in this passageway here that would potentially cause this seal to tear. So I'm not really seeing anything at all that needs replaced. Everything looks good. Well, obviously that, but all right, what do you say we get started with this? First mission is going to be to go down here and see if I can get the crank to turn. Fairly certain it'll spin. I'm going to get on that crank nut, and then I got to get down there and pull this fuel pump out. Again, the engine we are working with is a Buick 350. Not to be confused with any of the other GM small block 350s. This motor is 100% Buick. Has nothing in common with the other Buick or the other 350 General Motors motors. This is not an Oldsmobile Rocket 350. This is not a Pontiac 350. It has nothing in common with any of the other 350 engines. These motors have a long stroke, small bore, like about 3.5 inches. They have shaft mounted rocker arms. They're really durable engines. They have like a built-in rev limiter in the sense that they're long stroke, small bore. They're just not capable of spinning high RPM. Like you're pretty much all in at like 5,000 RPM. All right, I think we're money. How much dirt I can get my eyeballs today. Okay. Yeah. Okay, she spins. Good deal. Okay. I'm gonna have to reposition the camera up in the engine bay. You're not gonna be able to see anything. What I gotta do is get up here and bust off this nut. Pull this fuel pump off. So I'm gonna reposition you so I'm not knocking you over. Okay. I have to admit that when I decided to start doing these YouTube videos, I never imagined how incredibly difficult it is to get cameras set up in some of these hard to get to areas. I should have known that, but lots of times in mechanic work in general, it's hard to get wrenches in your hands and hard to get to areas. So why I would think that doing YouTube videos would make it any different. Trying to cram a camera up in here. I'm back. If I had a little more room in the shop and a little more time, I could just drag the car over to the shop. I really don't want this to round off, but good chance it's gonna be what happens. Come on, baby. Oh, it turned. Sweet. I think. Yeah, it turned. All right. In all likelihood, this is the original fuel pump. Oops. Okay. Okay. Victory. Sorry if I'm blocking the camera. Get these bolts started. Okay, got one of them, I think. You have to bear with me here for a second. Okay. There she goes. See. Okay, feels like it's on there, right? Okay, see how this fiasco goes. I'm hoping it lines up good the first time. Okay, cool. Get lucky once. My concern with this engine, obviously, being that it wouldn't run. Secondly, I can be concerned that got some stuck rings or something like that from sitting for so long. It's a good possibility. All right. I'll loosen this up a hair more. Boy, why couldn't they put fuel pumps on top of motors? They're up there on the side. Probably because it needs to be below the fuel level of the tank. But I guess they could have mounted tanks on the roof. That would have been a problem solver. Not as bad as a lot of modern stuff that we have to work on. Probably the worst being air compressor changes, stuff like that. His bright idea was to stick an air compressor on the bottom of a motor. A modern day fuel injected engine. That fooled whoever come up with that. He'd be punched in the face. Okay. Alright, next up on the list is going to be putting the carburetor back on. If you're new to this channel, I appreciate you checking it out. I got my hands in all kinds of random stuff, so I probably never seem to make any real progress. I set my expectations pretty high though, so. All right, I do actually get a lot done, but you know, it just sometimes seems like you don't. All right. I'll give a little squirt of looby dooby down the hole there. Make these bolts go in as easy as possible. Okay. Now the distributor, when I put another one in there from another car a year or two ago, I went through and put new points in it, new condenser. So it should be good to go. Okay, all my stuff is connected. Get my choke lever where it needs to be. Like I said before, these are pretty durable little motors. I mean, you're not gonna be snapping any necks. This motor, brand new in '69, was rated at 230 horsepower at like 9-to-1 or 9.5-to-1 compression. I think 9-to-1. The 4-barrel motors, the same year range, they were had 10-25-to-1 compression. They made 280 horsepower. They make more torque than they do horsepower though, so the same applies to the Buick big blocks. But these are good motors. My very first complete motor overhaul I did was on one of these. And I keep saying motor. I know technically they're an engine, so. But what I was saying is my very first motor that I built completely on my own was a Buick 350 that's in my blue car. And I beat the living dog out of it for a couple of years. Run it like I stole it, and before I finally calmed down, started getting a little more older and mature, and it's been running like a champ since I built it, and that's been 20 years ago. I don't put a whole lot of miles on it, but I just flogged it. It was a backyard rebuild kind of thing. I did it with no help, basically, just kind of 17 years old I think I was, and I'm sure I did a bunch of stuff wrong. I know I way overcammed it, stock exhaust manifolds, but I didn't know any better. I didn't have no background in hot rods, didn't have anybody that, you know, to tell me how to do it, so I just found the biggest cam that I could find in the book. Right in the Comp Cam's book, I remember reading it. Likes headers, choppy idle, and so I just put a big old fat cam in a totally stock otherwise motor, low compression. It sounds pretty mean, but it's pretty lame, pretty slow. It might be on a good day making 240 horsepower, advertised of course. But anyways, point is, these are good motors. I'll even be more convinced of that after this thing gets to running, if it will. Because especially the fact that, number one, sat from 1985 or 6 clear till the first time I tried to start it and get it running was 2004 or 5. Then it sat for a bunch more years, and then it had 50 gallons of water in it for a few days. Nasty, skanky water. So if it'll still run after all this, I mean, I'll be impressed. I'm giving it about 50-50 odds that A, it'll start, and B, run, you know, to the point where it's actually potentially usable. Just running doesn't mean that anything really. It just means that it's still got enough compression to actually run. But there's a lot of motors out there running that are not capable of really being daily drivers. Okay, get them bolts finally tightened down. Come on. Look at me hooking everything all back up. Like I overconfident that it'll run. I'll even hook the vacuum advance up because I know the vacuum advance is new. Okay. Okay, we're all hooked up. Everything moves. That line's kind of munched. I think I'm gonna go ahead and try to hook that up. Let's see, what do we got here? It's 5/8 probably. Yes. Alright, give me a crescent wrench. Yeah. This is probably going to be a leak point. Plan is, if this thing will start, then I'm going to hope that it'll still run. And then I'll hope that the transmission will still work, since it potentially had a ton of water in it as well. And transmissions definitely don't like water. So I'm kind of on a wing and a prayer here probably. But if it will and will move, my next plan will be to go ahead and order stuff to redo all the brakes. I know the front doesn't even have front shoes on it. So I'll order the stuff to do the brakes. I will, yeah, this thing I think is stripped a little bit. I'll order the stuff to do the brakes. I'll order a fuel tank. Regardless of whether this motor runs or not, I want to actually drive this car. So whether it's with this motor or something else, I do want it to actually run. So I will be buying a gas tank for it. Learned a long time ago that if you're piddling with an old car, it's been sitting a while, old truck, if you can get a new gas tank for it, just get it. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting it. But yeah, you can get an old tank to pull fuel, but you'll be chasing plug fuel filters, stuff like that for days. It's just not worth it. Just buy a tank for it. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to figuring out my coil situation. Got my factory ignition hot here. Got my negative to the distributor. And I got a jumper wire. I assume that I had used to bypass the coil a long time ago. So that probably means I wasn't getting voltage from the car, the key on. But for now, I'm going to set the coil in there and for sure hook up the negative. And, well, I guess I can hook both of them up. If I'm not getting power, I'm not getting power. Worry about that later. Alright, this is the coil I got. It needs an external resistor, but for the sake of what I'm trying to do here, this should be okay for now. There's an actual clamp down there, but I'm just going to set it right here on top Let's see. Once I get this thing out of the hole back here behind my shop where it's all muddy and stuff, I can worry about getting it in the shop and correcting little deficiencies and stuff. Yeah, that's totally the wrong size. Right now the objective is fire it up, get it out of this hole if possible. Although, even if I get it started, I'm probably not going to drive it out of the hole right now. Probably put it in gear, move it forward and back a couple of foot. Got to air up the tires and everything. Okay. And my chickens are over here. Every time they see me outside, they think it's time to eat. Okay. We got a known good coil hooked up. Get a crunchy coil wire plugged back up. There it goes. Okay. Now I gotta find a battery. Okay, y'all wanna hear a funny story? I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time now, and I neglected one critical element to a Will It Run video and to combustion engines in general. They don't run good without gas. So guess what I don't have very much of? I have like 5 gas cans. Between all of them, I was able to scrounge up about, a third of a gallon of gas. So, way to go, genius. All right, loosen that clamp up just a little. What is that? Huh, it's not a 1/2-inch bolt. Communist. Got a communist battery post manufacturer. Okay. Well, I guess a little sparky. Make sure nothing is fouling the belts. I'll go inside and see if we got dash lights. See if the motor will bump over. And that's a communist post as well. Okay. Should we check the dipstick? It's way overfilled. It's not way overfilled. It's a little overfilled, but it's clean oil. When I pumped all the water out of it 2 or 3 years ago, I recall that I changed the oil on it. Then when I tried to do a Will It Run with my buddy, it had oil pressure and stuff, or it didn't illuminate the oil pressure light. Okay, we have a dome light. We have back interior lights. Got a lovely headliner. All right, what do we got? Key is off. We've got a oil pressure and a gin light. She is in park. and see if the starter will do anything. The starter was underwater, so it's suspect. She cranks. Doesn't sound very even. I don't know if that's because the starter's a little lame, or more likely it's got compression issues or a valve hung up. But it spins. That's a win. So we're gonna go up here and check for spark. Or well, check for power to the coil. You're all right. Get my handy dandy test light. Battery cables didn't get hot. That's a good sign. Oh, it's got coil power. That's crazy. So I'm gonna crank it. If y'all want to keep an eye on this, see if we're getting a winky, getting a blinky. It's off, so that means the points I think are working a little. See if I can wedge that in there. See if we get a blinky. Right through the windshield, I can tell. So, pretty good chance she's gonna fire. All right, y'all. Well, guess this is the moment of truth. I sure wish Chase was here to watch this. We couldn't get no spark when we tried it a couple years ago. Maybe he's up there in the sky watching. I'd like to think that he is. I'm gonna prime it just a little. I've got my fuel pickup from the pump and my 1/3 gallon of gas. I'm gonna prime it just a little, crank it. It's probably gonna start die until I start pulling some fuel. So my primary objective though is gonna be to watch the oil pressure light. Once you get oil pressure, it'll go out. So I'm gonna try to dribble a little bit into the bowl vent. That'll fill up the bowl. But she's gonna be smoky if she starts. This car just got a single exhaust on it. That's probably a big enough drink. Get a little drink in the carb. And a little more, it's cold out. Alright, y'all. Guess we find out. That was pretty undramatic. Got nothing. Not a sputter. Wonder what the choke would do. Yeah, see what happens. The coil wires on all the way. Might have to jump the coil straight to the battery. It's probably may not be supplying the proper voltage. And nothing. I don't smell no wires or anything. I don't remember why I had this jumper wire on here, but I believe I'm just going to go ahead and hook that up. 16, 17 years ago, for some reason I thought that that was going to be a good option, so I'll put that back on. It is getting voltage from the key, but I'm gonna overheat my coil probably pretty quick. The points are working, so as long as we're getting voltage to here, we should be getting action at the plugs. May just not be enough prime too. Guess I could hook my jumper up. A lot of sparky. Whew, scared me. Well, that was promising. Wire's not too hot. You know, she wants to. On a positive note, the oil pressure light immediately went out, so it built the oil pressure. Priming the bowl, little sniff. I don't know where we're at on the idle. Eh? Promising. Let's see. Here, give her a little more idle speed, maybe. Not pulling fuel yet. Accelerator pump's not doing anything. Disconnect the coil. Overheat it. Yeah, it's not hot yet. We aren't pulling a drop of gas yet. You go get some priming. getting any fuel pump action. Well, that fuel in the line. I think I'm gonna pull the top off the carburetor, see if it's got gas in it. It's got good fuel pressure. All right. Excuse me. Could be dealing with a stuck float. I'll find out real quick. Get fuel in this bowl or not. So I'm getting zero squirter action, so that kind of makes me wonder what if I got fuel in the bowl. Come back to find out. After I get one last bolt out, that is. And the bowl is completely dry. Not a drop in there. The jets are totally uncovered. So that's clearly the problem. Plug needle and seat. I'll bring you back when I figure that out. Alright, so my needle and seat was plugged up. What I clearly overlooked was that fuel line would be full of crap from sitting for 40 years like an idiot. So I had good pressure here, a lot. As soon as I cracked the line, it was squirting out. Pulled the top off the carb and there was nothing in it. So I blew the needle and seat out. It had trash in it. And then I just cranked it for a second and blew anything remaining in there straight into the bowl. And the fuel in there is kind of dirty. It was clean this morning when I had the carburetor apart. I don't know what I should have blown some brake cleaner through there, but live and learn, right? I'm gonna clean this bowl out, put some actual fuel in it. That way the car will stay running. The car wants to run, it just clearly had run completely out of fuel. I think she's gonna run now. Like I said, I was getting no accelerator pump action, which means that the fuel level in the bowl isn't high enough to spill into the well for the plunger. Got some junk in it, come right out of that stupid fuel line. I think probably until, I mean not for right now's sake, but I'll probably pull this off and just loop a hose through there with a fuel filter so anything remaining doesn't get sucked into the stinking engine. I'm gonna give the jets just a tiny squirt of brake cleaner, throw her back together, and I bet money she stays running this time. Alright, so you can see right there, that debris is what blew straight out of that fuel line. I should have known better, but live and learn. Alright, y'all. I left a few of the screws loose on the top of the carburetor just in case I have to take it back off. I left the cotter key off of the accelerator pump. But I bet she goes this time. Hope they didn't fool with the timing too much. I don't think it was too far off. Alright, I'm going to connect the coil wire up, give it a spin. I bet she goes. Now I'm nervous. Guess I'll prime her again. The bowl's still mostly empty. I bet she goes. I hope she goes. I'm ready for it to go. My wife wants to put Christmas lights up here shortly. I have not even got them out yet. Come on, stay running. Come on. You can do it. The belt looks a little scary. Moving out. Sounds okay back here. Not smoking too bad. Brake pedal's obviously stuck all the way down. I think we're gonna lose that belt. A little smoky in the car. Don't have no oil pressure light lit. I'm about to run out of gas. And we're out of gas. Disconnect my coil. Smoking some oil off the engine. Well, it runs. It was smoothing out the longer it ran. till I run out of gas. Can't believe that. Wanting to will it run on this forever, and I forget to buy gasoline. What a moron. Anyways, I'm glad to know that it will light off. I suppose in part 2 we'll air the tires up, see if it'll go forwards and reverse, maybe drive it around the yard. It's pretty exciting. Wasn't wanting to do it at first, but she wants to do it now, I think. But my man Chase would be proud. We sat out here all afternoon a couple of years ago trying to do this, and he sure wasn't in good health at the time, so sure wish I could have got this done then. But it's exciting for me. I am glad this thing started. No oil pressure light, so no death smells like you can usually smell if it gets hot real fast. That's going to be the next concern, cooling system. But thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2.